The Supreme Court is hearing the asylum case. Well, that could be worthy. I'm Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz Today. Let the games begin. So the Supreme Court is hearing an asylum case. It's about whether or not you could turn people away on the Mexican side of the southern border, whether or not you actually have to let them into the country. I mean, one would argue that this is a rather large deal. Are you telling me that a country is not allowed to say, no, you can't come in until we prove who you are and whether or not we agree with your claim? We have to let you in first, then decide your claim. But by that time, they have access to all these other opportunities and so-called rights. You and I have already come to a decision. The law is a whole different thing. Tony Katz Today. Good to be here. Good to be with you. Justice Amy Coney Barrett is speaking. A woman named Kelsey Corcoran also speaking in favor of those illegal immigrants claiming asylum.
Into that part next. So we take out at the port of entry when we're talking between ports. And the question is, what does it mean to arrive in the United States? I think you would have to be at a place where you could, in fact, cross. So if you got up to, let's assume it's a place on the border where there is an actual line, identifiable line, I would say the same analysis applies, right? Have you made it to the threshold and you're about to step over?
So anybody at the water's edge of the Rio Grande on the Mexican side has arrived in?
No, the border is halfway through the water.
All right, so they've got one step short of halfway through. They've arrived, but somebody who's on the water's edge has not arrived.
Yeah, I think that's right. So you're looking at being at the threshold of when you're going to cross.
And so somebody who's at the fence has arrived in, but somebody a step away from the fence has not arrived in.
Well, so the fence, if we're talking about the border wall, that is, the border wall is entirely on the interior. So in fact, anyone who gets to the border wall is also physically present.
So anybody who's arrived at the fence is in.
Yes, but that's just a matter of geography that they're already present. Okay. To take the hypothetical though, what if there was a fence border wall exactly on the border line? There, the analogy that I think of is a stadium. So I'm arriving at a stadium when I'm at the entrance going through the turnstile. I probably wouldn't describe myself as arriving in the stadium if I'm still on the perimeter making my way to a place where I can enter. So I don't think
so if
someone who's
at the top of the wall, they're in, but if they're at the bottom of the wall, they're out.
Oh, so now they've climbed.
Yeah. No, I'm just trying to understand what it means.
Yeah, so I suppose
we're going to get these, we're going to get, as soon as we decide what it means, we're going to get cases.
Well, so
that's Justice Gorsuch. And you start realizing, because by the way, this is all happening as I'm going through it. I had not heard that. I'm hearing it like you're hearing it. Yes, there's going to be a whole bunch of takes on the takes about what is in the country right now. I always took it as a very much the conversation we had with Cuban refugees, wet foot, dry foot. Did you touch land? Yes or no? But I think that the larger scale conversation is what we think of as rights. Does somebody have the right to say, I'm seeking asylum, and therefore they're allowed into the country no matter what? So this is a little different. The policy that we're discussing here, or the conversation we're discussing here, is whether or not you could turn back asylum seekers before they can reach the border with Mexico. So we're having a conversation, you and I, first about what we think this means, but the asylum conversation is if someone's planning to claim asylum, can you turn them away at the quick, before they ever get here? I would only ask the question, how would you know they're applying? And how do you turn them away if they're in if they're in El Salvador? You could say, we're not taking anybody, thank you very much. You could say, no, we're not doing this today. Tuesdays and alternating Thursdays. Don't forget to make an appointment with my secretary. That's also possible. What the immigrants' rights groups and asylum seekers are saying is that this is contrary. It's counter to federal immigration law, and thus created a humanitarian crisis in Mexico. I must admit that on a personal level, I don't care about the humanitarian crises in Mexico, because they don't seem to give a good holy damn about anything they do to us. What about the humanitarian crisis that Mexico created for us by not being willing to stop people at their water's edge, crossing into Mexico? They said, America's that way. Go on. See you there. Bye-bye. Thank you for coming. What about what they did? Now, I'm maybe a little stronger on this than others. I still believe they need to be held wholly accountable. But it's an interesting case about whether or not you can tell people no before they've entered the U.S. Do you have to enter the U.S. to be the asylum seeker? Anyway, back to Neil Gorsuch here, who was making some commentaries.
Practical matter, that's not going to be a concern because the wall is, in fact, within the perimeter. A hypothetical wall that was on the line and a person had kind of gotten to the top and was about to fall over, I guess, would potentially be arriving.
How come somebody who's in the line isn't in? I mean, if the whole point is to make sure that people who are attempting to get into the country have the opportunity to file asylum claims, and they've made it all the way, why does it matter he's second in line?
I think that's just a function of arriving in.
So the whole debate boils down to the one person who's at the port, the one person who's at the front of the line.
Yeah, and I think that's because I think it's important.
So the rest of the case, you agree with the government on?
No,
everybody else in the line, everybody else who's being metered doesn't have an asylum claim, just the person who's.
They have an asylum claim. They have to get up to the border to present it. Now, I think maybe the question is if the government was stopping people from getting physically to the line, because if you're waiting in line and you just decide to abandon waiting and you don't actually make it to the threshold.
No. These people want to make these claims. They're there.
Right.
And they're being metered and they're told, no, not today. And you're saying the person who's made it up to the inspection officer gets to make that claim, and everybody else who's been waiting there maybe for hours or days doesn't.
Well, they just then, once they get up there, can make the claim.
But they have to get up there, yeah.
I think that people are going to be taking a look at that from Gorsuch and saying that was a punch that the immigrant rights people are not prepared to take. So this idea of metering, as you heard Justice Gorsuch stated, so this is a policy that came into place going back about a decade regarding Haitian migrants outside of a port of entry in San Diego. A nice write-up about this over at scotusblog.com. Officials from Customs and Border Patrol would stand along the U.S.-Mexico border and turn back non-citizens who did not have valid travel documents, including asylum seekers, before they could enter the United States. And in 2017, that got extended to all ports of entry across the border, formalized in a memorandum in 2018. So people sued to change that policy. 2024, U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit ruled that for the purposes of being able to apply for asylum under federal immigration law, non-citizens, this is how it's written, who were turned away from ports of entry before they could enter the United States had arrived in the country. And the judge, Michelle Friedland, wrote, the phrase physically present in the United States encompasses non-citizens within our borders, and the phrase arrives in the United States encompasses those who encounter officials at the border, whichever side of the border they are standing on. Well, that would mean that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals just moved where the border is. They just made that pretty expansive. So now we're kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of what this case is all about. If I were to engage this in the Bill Clinton parlance, I think this is about the question of what the definition of the word is. And so we go back to what Gorsuch just said. I mean, I'm sharing it with you as it was happening. And you realize Gorsuch just took the argument being made by these people, this attorney for immigrant rights organizations, this Kelsey Corcoran, and said, your argument is the person at the front of the line speaking to the Border Patrol entry person, that person is in. Everybody else isn't. That's the claim. That's how you're making the argument. And I think that's going to be a very difficult thing to return from. Just like we saw with mail-in balloting yesterday. How is the court looking at mail-in balloting, which is not whether or not mail-in balloting can exist, but rather mail-in balloting and how many days after an election day can votes be counted? Can you keep accepting these mail-in ballots? And it's very much seems that the argument is election day is the day and is also counted on the day, not afterwards. We count on election day. So why would we ever allow the Mississippi rule that says for 5 days afterwards? That's not election day. Election day is the day. I'm almost, at least for Gorsuch, I'm a believer it's going down the same road. Which is, why would we think that somehow somebody who isn't in the country is in the country, or should be treated like they're in the country, get the benefits of being in the country, and allowed to claim asylum, that somehow we have to make an action in their favor and in their stead? It would very much seem that that's not in the country. Only in the country is in the country. This is going to be an interesting case. We will follow it. Meanwhile, I hear about some kind of deal with Iran, but I don't even know how that's possible, because who the bloody hell is running Iran right now? Keep it here. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. Welcome back, everybody. Tony Katz. Tony Katz Today, guys. An absolute pleasure to be here with you. It wasn't my plan to get into SCOTUS, but there it was. And so I took advantage of it. I do want to get into the latest regarding Iran and Rashida Tlaib, because she is, well, exactly what you thought she was. Exactly the violent bigot thrilled with death and destruction. I'll share it with you, and you can decide. And then we'll get into ICE as well. Where do I have this? Right here. in the world is it? There it is. And the secret Facebook group that she's a part of. You got questions, I've got answers. We need this voter ID law, natural born citizenship for any office and term limits. Now, you're not going to win on the natural born citizenship for any office. You'd have to create the law for that. And I just don't see it happening in America. Term limits. Yeah, you can. First of all, welcome to the show. You may very well get yourself to term limits. I think more and more people, and I'm a guy who has traditionally been very opposed to term limits. We're supposed to be the term limit. We're the people supposed to say, yeah, I'm not voting for this guy anymore. It's been too long. He's too old. This, that, and the other. I think more and more people are starting to feel that this is just nutty already. And as for the voter ID, I could not agree more. Could not agree. As for William Jacobson, Cornell law professor, legalinsurrection.com, I reached out to him last week. He wasn't available. So it had been a while. So don't worry. He'll be back. He's a good man. I hope to have him back. 10,000%. So there is a secret Facebook group. I do not believe I am in any secret Facebook groups. I've been in groups, right? Maybe the page was private, but it wasn't being secret. Yeah, that's a thing. Tony Katz today, certainly not secret for any nefarious purpose, as opposed to this connection to Rashida Tlaib. Rashida Tlaib was a member of a secret Facebook group, as reported by Fox News. The group has members that glamorize Hamas and were thrilled with what happened on October 7th. The founder of the group is a guy by the name of Maher Abdelkader. Ties to Rashida Tlaib, the bigot from Michigan, member of Congress, and is a Holocaust denier. The group is called the Palestinian American Congress. They have posts such as, "We don't want to throw you in the sea. We want you to ride it back from where you came." Okay. Another post talks about the achievements of resistance in northern occupied Palestine, which refers to dead Israeli soldiers. Northern occupied Palestine. We all understand that there is no Palestine, that this is all just a gross bit of pseudo-intellectual propaganda that works very well on people of willing intellect. Is that a nice way to say that? If you view everything in your world as oppressed and oppressor, right, which is just like a 99% and 1%, as Barack Obama called it, it's the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. It's all Marxism. Someone is being oppressed, so therefore someone's oppressing them. Well, that's how they view Israel and the Palestinians. Palestinians are brown. Have you ever taken a look at an Israeli? Oh, no, they're white. They're clearly, forget it. Let's not. But this is the group. This is what they support. They support Hamas. They support the terrorism. They're fine with it. Rashida Tlaib is a part of it. I think Rashida Tlaib being connected to it, whether she was an active participant or not, I cannot answer. I think her being a part of it, connected to it, is the most unsurprising thing in all of politics, in all of America. Do we have to actually ask ourselves whether or not she is a bigot? We don't have to. Do we have to ask ourselves whether or not Ilhan Omar is a bigot? Absolutely not. Do we have to ask ourselves whether people like Congressman Andre Carson, who supports Rashida Tlaib and calls him his sister, do we have to question whether or not these people are bigoted, whether these people are hateful, whether or not what they want is full-on destruction. It doesn't have to be asked. I don't care where you are in Israel. Doesn't mean anything. We're talking about these people. We're talking about the cheering on of Hamas. Wherever you are on Israel, they're cheering a terrorist organization. Now, if you find yourself, or if anybody finds themselves cheering a terrorist organization, that's a whole different thing. Because I don't think one should cheer terrorist organizations. Now, somebody out there is going to be of such little mind that they are going to say, well, what about America? What about America? America's a terrorist organization. And at that moment, you smile and say, from now on, we don't invite Uncle Jimmy to Thanksgiving. Because it's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing. Her being a part of this group is everything we would have already assumed. Now, this, of course, doesn't lead us into the latest with Iran, but it does at least segue. What comes next is the key question. Because we need to break down this idea that there is this detailed, intense conversation going on between the United States and the Israelis and the Iranians. Right? I've got this story over at the Wall Street Journal, the back channel diplomacy behind Trump's U-turn on Iran. Who's he even talking to? Who's making decisions for Iran? Who speaks for these people? This leadership that has already had the living snot kicked out of it. And let us at least go a step further. What is a deal? What does it look like? Now, I understand what it looks like for Trump, and I'll get into that. What does it look like for you? Maybe you didn't want to engage this at all. Maybe you desperately wanted to engage this. Maybe you're somewhere in the middle. We're here now. What do you want to do? It's like asking yourself, hey, it's the last day of vacation. What do you want to do before we go? I'm not trying to minimize war, by the way. What is the plan here? Did we actually achieve a goal? Or is there a goal still to be achieved? What would be considered a level of success, and what's considered that was not necessary? We didn't do the job. We didn't finish the job. We could have done more. At what moment do Americans get to say, hey, we did a lot of good there? Or do they get to say we did no good there? I'm not talking about Democrats. I'm talking about Americans. It's a question we have to answer because only we get to decide that. The administration can push anything they want to push. Doesn't mean we'll agree with it. So what exactly is the goal here? And if there is some kind of deal to be made with the Iranians, with whom are we making it? The regime? The new regime? Wait, there's going to be a new regime? Well, President Trump said he wanted a say in who was going to be leading the country, so maybe. Who are we talking to matters greatly. That's our discussion. What's being said and what does it mean? Because in a propaganda war, we're the ones who fall for it. This is Tony Katz today. All right, so I've got that story from the Wall Street Journal. And then I've got this from News Nation. And then I've got this from Fox right there. Reports that Steve Witkoff could be in Islamabad this week talking about how to end this thing. I'm not buying it. Hold on a second. Anthony, I appreciate, first of all, great name. Great name. I appreciate you being here. There is no Palestine. There is no country at this moment named Palestine. None. There was an area referred to as Palestine. There was no country called Palestine. That's my point. That's all I'm saying. Oh, and the Palestinians, people who call themselves Palestinians, they were, sorry, little bit of a runny nose. I know what you're saying. Sexy. How could you not? But seriously. That wasn't until Arafat started referring to them as Palestinians. Sorry, it's just it's nonsense. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less. So I have that story, and I have. Oh no, that's that. I had another story. No, that goes there as well. And then there's the ever popular lowlife Chris Van Hollen. And he's a lowlife. The senator from Maryland. Low, low, low. Oh, and then we've got ICE. How successful ICE has been. All right. Yes, Mark Wayne Mullen was indeed confirmed. He'll be sworn in sometime this afternoon, this evening, something like that. This right here. There's this. 60 seconds till we're back. Sorry, just grabbing some stuff. Oh, and then there's Alex Jones going after Dan Bongino. It's Alex Jones. What do I care? No, my local airport, Indianapolis, is not getting assistance from ICE. They're like, we don't need it. We weren't assigned them, so we didn't have it. So President Trump sends ICE to the airports, and the next thing you know, everything's better. Next thing you know, the lines are moving. The next thing that you know, people are getting to their destination for spring break so they can see grandma or do body shots on the beach.
Yeah, Stuart, it is exponentially different here today than it was this time yesterday over the weekend. As you can see, there is a very short line right now. And it's unclear if that's because ICE is now assisting TSA or if it's just a slower travel day. But regardless, a remarkable change from the hours-long waits we've been seeing with lines stretching all the way around baggage claim. So I want to give our viewers some perspective. Take a look at this. To the left of your screen is what the baggage claim area looks like this morning. No lines at all in that part of the airport after still a busy early hours in the morning. And to the right of your screen is baggage claim around the same time yesterday morning. It was packed.
Yes, Fox News. It's because it was a slower travel day. Come on. You had people. You had the people doing the job. That's what happened. And when you have people doing the job, you have success. Tony Katz today. I forget sometimes if I say hello. So it's good to be here. Good to be with you. I wonder whether or not this gives ICE a bump in the polls, how people view them and view the organization. I don't know. I don't know if it helps in a PR kind of way. I do know that while people are now having an easier time getting through the airports and aren't stuck on lines and aren't captives to the Democrats' insanity regarding keeping Department of Homeland Security shut down, Senator Cory Booker, he's outraged.
And so what's happening today in America that should outrage everybody? He's taking this very same agency that has been bursting into our schools, into our churches.
Sorry. I'll find a better audio. He's making the argument that somehow TSA is bursting into schools and bursting into churches. He's making this argument. He is saying we can't trust ICE because, well, they have to be terrible in order for us to do the things we want to do and say the things we want to say. Well, we have to keep calling them terrible and everything they do terrible and everything they do horrible. That's his argument. They can't be trusted. And then he wants to argue that it is Republicans that are keeping ICE hostage. I'm sorry, keeping TSA hostage. This was him on with Joe Scarborough.
To people that may not have been following this closely, how Democrats, you say 7 times, have taken, gone to the floor and tried to get our TSA agents in airports paid, and Republicans have killed that every single time. Can you explain that?
Yeah, it's very simple. There's been a massive fight over ICE, which is in the Department of Homeland Security. There has been, understandably, all across this country, worries about their tactics, the violence that's resulted, the chaos in communities. And so Democrats have said, we're not giving more money to an agency that's out of control without substantive reforms. Well, what this president and the Republicans' position is, okay, if you don't want to fund ICE, you're not going to fund any other agency. We're going to shut down the whole Department of Homeland Security.
So you understand he's lying from the quick. Republicans have voted to fund the Department of Homeland Security. The entire department. It is Democrats that refuse to, and he goes on and he lies. I'd call him a liar to his face. It's a lie. And they believe it's a winner, and they believe that the pain is a winner. They think the pain is fantastic. They think the pain gets them somewhere. So I go back to whether or not having ICE in the airports is going to actually be helpful. Now, Senator John Kennedy, he is making the argument that enough is enough, right? He's not having the Cory Booker argument that you can't trust these people. ICE, and they burst into people's homes and they burst into churches and they take people. No. Bursting into churches is what Don Lemon does. Senator John Kennedy is saying, why in the world are we even fighting with Democrats? Why are we even talking to them? They're unserious people. Why don't we not just TSA or any level of ICE funding, why don't we take everything, put it through reconciliation? So the plan A was to reopen the government, fund everything except anything regarding ICE, which is what Democrats want, then use reconciliation to fund ICE. Reconciliation is a budget process. And when you're talking about a budget process, you do not need the 60-vote threshold to open debate or close debate before a vote. Rather, you only need a simple majority, 50 plus 1. Right? Whether you have 51 votes or 50 in the tiebreak from the vice president, that's all you need. That's all you need. What Kennedy is saying is the president doesn't want to do that because he doesn't want to sign anything until really the SAVE Act is passed. He's not going to go for this. So why don't we just put the whole thing through reconciliation? Why are we playing around the edges? Let's just do the whole damn thing through reconciliation. I like the way he's thinking. This is the way we should be thinking. There is no reason that we should pretend that we're in the same world, the same league as the Democratic Party. They're not anywhere connected to us. They're in the minors. We're trying to play Major League ball here. We're going to handle things. We're the party in charge. Let's go be in charge. And by doing this, okay, if you can actually engage this via reconciliation, you take ownership of the whole thing, which is fine. Republicans got you paid. Republicans kept the country safe. You got to be able to market it. My issue is that Republicans are very, very bad regarding the marketing. And did you see the moment where Senator Kennedy is saying because of this shutdown, senators should not get paid? He's there in the Senate, and he's making this argument. And what you're going to hear is somebody shout, "I object." You've got Senator Kennedy speaking. You have Senator Jim Banks from Indiana, who's presiding over the Senate at that moment. Follow this.
Mr. President, as if in legislative session, and notwithstanding Rule 22, I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to the consideration of calendar number 296, SRES 526, which Senator Moreno and I have just talked about. And further, that the resolution be agreed to and the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there an objection? The objection is heard.
Now, that is Democratic Senator Brian Schatz out of Hawaii. I object. And what you are about to witness is the moment where they realize he left. He said, I object to the idea of senators not getting paid, because if these government workers aren't getting paid, why should senators be paid? He objected and then left. Check out the confusion, because Banks is like, there's an objection. And he looks over and Schatz is gone. He's like, what's going on here? That silence is no one knowing what to do.
With respect, I want to give my colleague, Senator Schatz, more time. As he objected and left the chamber, is he coming back? Well, wait, just one second. I mean, is he
quick question?
Is he ill?
No one knows. That's the Democratic Party. Why do I even have to stand up and make my case? I object. The senators want to get paid. They don't care if anybody else gets paid. They don't care how long you are in line. And if you actually do something to fix the lines, they say, how dare you fix the lines? Republicans are going to lose to these people? Republicans are going to lose to these progressives in the midterms? This is their messaging? Good Lord. Good Lord. Meanwhile, the Iran question. Yeah, I've got a few. Keep it here. This is Tony Katz Today. Welcome back, everybody. Tony Katz. Tony Katz today. What in the world is this? What in the mess? I don't know what that is. I do not know what that is. Moving on. Yeah, so I have not smoked a cigar on air in a while. So here, everything's fine. I don't know when it was. So I'd had a cold, right? And then it kind of went away. And then it came back with a vengeance. And so, I mean, I'm doing the show, right? And we're live streaming and the nose is running and it's just also, what was I thinking? Just shut off the camera, Katz. But no. I love you too much. And then I just after that, the allergies or whatever it was just kind of knocked it out of me. And so I ended up going like a little over a week without even having a cigar, which for me is outrageously rare. And I will admit that I have reduced consumption by half. There are days I don't have a cigar. There are days I only have one cigar. It's just, I think there's still some remnants of people talking about the fact that maybe allergies are back because the weather's changing or whatever. Maybe. And that could all be it. It just hasn't been there. And I am not a believer in smoking out of rote. You have to smoke out of want. And if it's not there, what do you do? All you're doing is wasting a cigar. Doesn't make any sense. The cigar is about enjoyment and about this moment. And it's not about anything else. And so if it's not there, don't do it. I will admit, over the past 3 days, I've picked up. I think this has been feeling better, whatever the allergies are, whatever the case may be. So I think that's it. So that's the story with the cigars. I also there are some cigars that are moving out of my humidor, and some cigars I need to move into the humidor, and that's gonna be costly. Not gonna lie. I'm also not gonna lie. I'm totally gonna do it. Totally gonna do it. Unquestionable. According to the Wall Street Journal, the Iranians might be worried that talks with Trump could be a trap. I need Admiral Akbar at that moment. Maybe. Would I believe any talks? No. And do I believe talks are happening? Not really. I don't believe it. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. Who in the world could we possibly be talking to? When Trump says the talks with the Iranians are going well, when Israel says there may be a deal that comes together that works for everybody, with whom are you making a deal? Now, there is the head of the Iranian parliament, who was the mayor of Tehran back in 2005. And he was with the IRGC before that as a commander, or just after that as a commander. His name is Kolvet, Qalibaf. Maybe they're negotiating with him. But this guy's a part of the IRGC. You can't be negotiating with the IRGC and expect that there's going to be a deal that could be trusted. That's crazy town. No, you cannot believe such a thing. But one of the things that we know is that This is a war of propaganda. The United States, along with Israel, want to keep the Iranians guessing. The Iranians want to keep the American left and the woke right pushing against Trump and Israel. All warfare is deception. That's Sun Tzu. But is there any question that Iran, to the extent that any leadership exists, wants to ensure it is activating their useful idiots in the United States to press against Trump, to press against conservatives, to press against anything that would involve destroying the regime? The answer is, of course not. It's exactly what they're doing. So when Iran says there's no conversation happening, we're not having any conversations with Donald Trump, it's a lie. I don't believe them for a second. Then you have the news that direct talks between the U.S. and Iran on ending the war could be held in Islamabad as early as this week. Reuters reported this. There are intermediaries, including Egypt, Pakistan, and several Gulf states, that have been relaying messages between Washington and Tehran. And Iranian media reported that Pezeshkian, he's the president of Iran, and the Pakistani prime minister discussed the war's impact on regional and global security. Do I believe that Witkoff is going to have this meeting? Witkoff could have a meeting, but I don't know if it's a meeting that is guaranteed to end the fighting, because ending the fighting has to mean something. And for the record, just for the sake of clarity, I have no problem with ending the fighting. It's not my issue. If we're ending the fighting before the regime is gone, I don't know why we were there. I don't. And talking doesn't mean that it's all going to be over. But I want to be clear. I'm totally fine with leaving. But the regime has to be gone. Otherwise, what do we do? But now we're just talking about the possibility of talking. It doesn't mean we are. And what matters is what we are. It's like Trump saying the Iranians have 2 days or we're going to bomb their big power facilities. Well, we've had such good conversations, I've decided to give it 5 days. Give them a 5-day reprieve. Was he bombing anything? Was he planning on bombing anything? This is where the propaganda comes in. And of course, Trump is doing this. I have discussed this. The Pentagon is very, very good at the misdirect. And a lot of what they're doing is clearly misdirect. And we may find, as we sit here, there is a new bombing raid going on of these power facilities in Iran because the objective was to throw them off fear, try and misdirect her, do the other thing. They do have strategy. All I can tell you is that I don't believe any of it. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be dismissive. It's just, don't tell me what people say. Tell me what people do. Especially in this case. I'm Tony Katz. Hold on. No, not that. Although that M-Dog hasn't smoked a cigar in 25 years. What do you mean a cigarette? You haven't smoked a cigarette in 25 years. Good for you. Good for you. We're there because Trump was told to by Daddy Bibi. Sorry. You're looking for Candace Owens. I'm Tony Katz. We're different people. So you can go find her podcast, and I wish you the best of luck with that. I look forward to just, oh my gosh, that got deleted. How did that happen? I, for one, am shocked. Ridiculous people. Guys, we are in the radio break. So we're going to take the break right now. Now, I do have to stop the show a little bit early, but it's not right now. I'll tell you when. I do want to get into this Joe Kent stuff. He's lying here. He's lying there. He's lying everywhere. Joe Kent. Did he really go on with Mark Levin? I thought that was a joke at first. I didn't know that. But the story that Andrew Kolvet, who I've never met, is talking about with these messages, it's worthy of discussion. And how these things move through and what it means to us. This is really a more in-depth political right conversation. But what this means to us Where do we get news, thoughts, and theories? Where do we spend our time? Where do we spend our energy? And are we just ruining ourselves here? Or is this the kind of thing that is healthy, is good, and is everything the left doesn't do? And will we suffer for it? I've got a bunch of thoughts on this I want to get to. Guys, hang loose, smoke them if you got them. The show will continue in a little bit. Keep it right here. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz. Today, I'm glad you're here. I appreciate it. We are going to get into this Joe Kent story. Now, it's not that I think Joe Kent matters at all. I don't. I think that the idea of what he engaged, what he was saying, 18 days to decide that we should not be in this war and it's all Israel's fault is just horse crap. It's the same crap from Megyn Kelly and from Tucker Carlson without any I think rationality at all. What is it that we need and we want? And why would we think that somehow we're better off with the regime still in power? Why would we think this? Very odd to me. And I think it's odd to them. And I think they're just engaged in something different than what I'm engaged in their presentation and why they present the way they do. Joe Kent, I don't see any need for a level of respect. Well, you know, Tony, he served, he did this, he did that. Whoa. Thanks for that. But this is disqualifying. You don't get a pass because of that when you do this. I don't think your past defines your future. Your future still has to be, lived. But the story of how some information got here, there, and everywhere, this is a story, I think. I just maybe haven't figured out where. Show is coming back. Let's get to it. I do not know Andrew Kolvet, a producer for the late Charlie Kirk. I don't know the man. I've never met the man. I've never had a conversation with the man. To be honest, until Charlie's assassination, I don't think I'd ever seen a picture of him. It's okay. I'm not in that orbit. And, it's neither here nor there. Tony Katz today. Guys, a pleasure to be with you. Find everything I do over at TonyKatz.com and go be a part of it. The podcast, wherever it is you get your podcasts, just look for Tony Katz today and subscribe. Andrew Kolvet is making a heck of an allegation here. And the allegation is that there were indeed text messages between Charlie Kirk and Joe Kent. Joe Kent was the guy running national counterterrorism, and he resigns last week in this big flourish, and I can't be a part of this, and I can't abide by this war, and this is all Israel's fault. 18 days later, he decides to resign. Not 18 hours later, not 18 minutes later, 18 days later. That's a guy who wanted to make sure that his money was going to be okay. His reputation was going to be able to have some bolstering. Something. No one waits 18 days. You mean if the war had gone on 5 days, you would have been okay with it, Joe Kent? It's not for me to understand. It's for me to notice. Because if I try to understand it, my head will explode. I can't. And you have come out on so many sides of things. This is wrong and this is obscene and Trump's being led by the Israelis. And then the other day it was, I hope Trump does this and does that and wins this thing. Dude, I can't follow. Your letter. I support the values and the foreign policies that you campaigned on in 2016, 2020, and 2024. Until June of 2025, you understood that the wars in the Middle East were a trap that robbed America of precious lives of our patriots and depleted the wealth and prosperity of our nation. Then you talk about the echo chamber and the tactics the Israelis used to draw us into this disastrous Iraq war that cost our nation the lives of thousands and our best men and women. It's a pretty ugly letter. It's this, but he sees himself, does Joe Kent, as pious. Again, 18 days. 18 days. Now we learned after that he is under federal investigation for sharing classified information. Don't tell me about his 11 tours and his Green Beret and all the rest. He shared classified information. I wanted the book thrown at Biden and former Vice President Mike Pence for having classified information, at least in the case of Vice President Pence. He realized he had a box with some classified information in it. He stopped what he was doing. He called the FBI, the Secret Service, and said, here it is. It wasn't strewn about his garage like Joe Biden hiding in an office in Boston. At his house there in Delaware, where people were coming in and out, and the Secret Service kept no logs. That was always precious. They never kept a log. They never even saved the information. We're not allowed to know who visited Joe Biden in Delaware. Fantastic. So you've got this investigation going on about the sharing of classified information. This brings us back to Andrew Kolvet. Again, I don't know the man. I have absolutely nothing against the man. Zero. But what he is saying in a clip that he put out yesterday, what he is saying is that the information that Candace Owens utilized was actually from this guy, Joe Kent. How in the world did she get this information? It's because Joe Kent took text messages he had with Charlie Kirk and shared them with Candace Owens. That's the argument being made here. And this is, without a question, very, very, very ugly. There's a lot to this. So I wanted to take a moment. Now, you're asking me, Tony, does this matter? Is this really the news story you want to go after? Give me a moment to explain. The answer right now is yes. I have actually shared before. There was a story that was out in one of the radio trades about whether or not radio hosts should be talking about these people, the podcast world, online characters, etc. And someone I know, like and trust, was like, no, my audience isn't really interested in that. And I disagreed. And my argument was that part of our job is to share with an audience what's happening. I never believe my job is to tell you what to think. I do believe my job is to give you something to think about. And certainly, I do think that part of the job is sharing what's happening in places outside of regular news, the kind of thing that your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews, coworkers, they are getting. You should have an idea of what that is. In the case here, because certainly we're talking about war and we're talking about people going on their anti-Israel and anti-Trump and anti-American approaches, certainly I can argue that Tucker Carlson is anything but America first. What matters here is where people are connected, connections you can't even begin to imagine, and what people are willing to do with that connection. what they're willing to do in the furtherance of their own career, their furtherance of a message. Why it is imperative that even amongst the people you know, like, and trust, and I'll utilize myself as example number one, example A. Of course you want to check, double check, and recheck. Everything I bring you is something that I theorize, I believe in, I try to bring backup to, and I bring the data to. Of course I can be wrong. What kind of crazy person doesn't think they can be wrong? It is up to you to check, double check, and recheck. So when this guy, Joe Kent, is out there and people are buying into it, yeah, Israel this, and yeah, what's America doing? Oh, Trump's lost his mind. And this is the guy we now trust? A guy who took private text messages and shared them with someone who wasn't a part of it? Yeah, I think that matters. Because it also should lead us, for those of us on the political right, I know lots of other people listen to the show, and you can argue for you as well, to be looking at what it is we allow and what it is that we say no to. Where is our standard and whether or not we apply it? I think we should. And you say to me, well, that's great, Tony, but the other side has no standard. And I say to you, I get it. I absolutely get it. So this is Andrew Kolvet speaking, and they still call it the Charlie Kirk show. And by the way, if I was asked, I would tell them they should stop doing that. Because it isn't. It is something else. And that's okay. I get why you did some things and you kept things going while you were figuring things out, the horror of his assassination. I don't think you're being rude by saying, okay, this show has a new name, because it is something different. Here's how we dedicate ourselves, and here's how we focus ourselves. It's my take. Neither here nor there. This is Andrew Kolvet.
Eventually, Joe did message me and suggest that I make those screen grabs public. I declined because those were shared privately. I didn't want to be reckless with them in the public. There could be innocent people on that group chat that would then be harmed. So I declined. But then fast forward another week or two, and they were made public. So that's what I know, is that Joe suggested that they be made public. I declined. Then they were made public. Can I 100% categorically say that he leaked them? No. But those are the facts. Maybe somebody on his team, maybe they got passed around, maybe somebody else leaked them. But those are the facts of the matter, and that's what I know.
Yeah. Now, good on him for covering himself, and let's make sure we're saying it the way he did. Text messages got leaked. Other people were on a group chat. He is not 100% sure that Joe Kent did it. One can make an inference and leave it at that. Let the conversation continue.
And the reason we're bringing this up, obviously, with his departure from the administration, there's a lot of debate over what it means. People have been arguing, was he a leaker? Some people have suggested he might be a criminal. He should be indicted. We're not saying that, but this has come up, and
yeah. Well, and my name's getting tossed around with this as if I did something untoward. No, I don't regret any of it. I regret that they were leaked. I was told that I could trust them. I told that it was private and it would be guarded just to look into any possible leads. And by the way, we did that with a bunch of different things because we want the truth to come out. So we're not blocking anything. We don't even care if the answer is something that is really, really terrible. Okay. We want the truth. We want justice. And we believe that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. We believe that they got their guy. We have additional questions, but guess what? It was an egregious breach. Whoever shared that screen grab publicly, it was an egregious breach. And obviously we're not happy about it, but can't put it back together again. Can't put the paste back in the tube, as they say.
When I started in the movement, if you will, I had a real belief that everybody was in it for the same purpose. Better country. Better country, rising tide lifts all boats. There's madness afoot in policy, and we can do better. What I learned over time is that maybe some people started out that way. a lot of people said, I kind of think this way, but if there's an opportunity for me, that's what I'm really in for. I'm in to build my opportunities. And when they got an opportunity, when they had a chance to grow, they very quickly dropped anybody who was, quote unquote, left behind. They were in the business for themselves. And that is, as a concept, is nothing new, although maybe it was new to me. Maybe it was just a level of naivete. That has held true and still holds true. That the people that are getting celebrated, take that back. I won't say celebrated. They seem to have large audiences online. Seem to be the kind of people that whatever will give them some leg up, regardless of what it does to someone else, regardless of what it means to their own soul, that's fine. That's fine. Let's go do that. No, I don't have any respect to that. Leaking Charlie Kirk's private messages to Candace Owens, and Candace Owens would in any way utilize them or reference it or anything else? You can't explain to me in a way that'll make sense why Candace Owens to this date has a large audience, or Meghan or Tucker. I could say that about 100 people, I guess. What is the moment when someone shows you that they're no longer worth your time? At what moment do we say these people are no longer worth our time? At what moment do we say that's not going to work for us? That's the story here. Not everyone's perfect, and I don't need altruism. I don't need to be the most famous guy on the yard. Someone else is allowed to be more famous. And many people are. Not famous. But doesn't there come a moment where we look at these people and say, okay, we get it. You're so desperate to ensure that 25-year-olds are watching you that you'll do anything and say anything. We're not interested in this. And don't they say, my God, these people will do anything to get me to watch? I'm not interested. The authenticity doesn't exist. So I believe we need to bring this up, because if we're not having this conversation, and we're not having this conversation with our kids, grandkids, cousins, nieces, nephews, friends, they're going to watch these people and believe them and think that everything that's coming their way comes from a place of pure heart. When you're sharing private text messages, that's not pure heart. That is pure something else. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. Hey, welcome back. Sorry, I was just looking at something right there. I was saying to you, producer Landon, I'm not 100% sure everyone's going to agree with my take there on what I just was discussing. I don't know. I think the idea of saying, well, some people listen to that stuff and just dang it, sorry. Sound issue. I think the idea of some people saying, well, people listen to that stuff and that's fine, it's all right. I just don't know if we should leave it at that. In the end, I can't stop people from doing it. I'm not interested in deplatforming a soul. I'm not. If you can get an audience, get an audience. Plain and simple. But can't we at least notice how messed up this all is? Because pretty dang messed up. Anyway, that is my take. And now to disassemble Seth Moulton's madness. 4 tours in Iraq and yet still can't get it right.
Guardrails do our military leaders have?
The Constitution. And it's incumbent on our military leaders to follow only lawful orders. And just to be crystal clear, bombing civilian power infrastructure is a war crime. We decry the Russians for doing this in Ukraine whenever they attack Ukrainian civilian power infrastructure. We always say it's a war crime. And so it's a war crime for the United States to take out civilian power infrastructure in Iran.
What makes you think it's just civilian, Representative Moulton? 4 tours in Iraq. Do you not understand how wars are won? And the answer is no, you do not. Well, Tony, you never served. Who are you to say? I understand that when you're talking about the Iranian regime, nothing is for the people. Could we all please just grow the hell up for 30 seconds? That's all I ask. It's a simple ask. That may be a piece of pound cake. Tony Katz today. And you know what? I'll take the pound cake first, please. Find everything at TonyKatz.com. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to hear this kind of conversation. 4 tours in Iraq. Your problem, sir, is that you don't understand winning. You don't understand the enemy. Nothing is for the people. When we talk about Russia and in the invasion of Ukraine, we're talking about an invading force. All of it is a crime. When we talk about taking out a terrorist regime, working on nuclear weapons, and definitively had missiles that could reach Diego Garcia, really U.S. assets, or at least the whole of Europe, when they said they don't, everyone said, oh, they don't, oh, they're never going to do it, and oh, why are you saying this? And oh, those warmongering Israelis and Americans, we were right, and they were wrong. And possibly you were wrong, Representative Moulton. Lord forbid, Senator Moulton. Your problem is you don't know how to win. You barely know how to fight. 4 tours you did, sir. It's important that our military knows not to follow illegal orders. There is nothing illegal about the order. There is something horrifyingly offensive and inhumane about taking hit after hit from a terrorist organization and not fighting back. Never mind, just remarkably stupid. I get it. We're different people. We are different. But these guys will accept anything. They'll take any punch every day. They're willing to get punched in the face, and they are Kevin Bacon in Animal House. Thank you, sir. Can I have another? Holy crap. I don't want to give these people another term. I sure as hell don't want to give these people power in the midterms. How is it possible that Republicans are going to lose to that guy? But they're trying. Although, I'll dig into that later this week. 3 more things that's coming up. Keep it here. This is Tony Katz Today. Find everything at TonyKatz.com. They not like us, Stephen. Right? Ain't no Drake up in here. They not like us. That is the truth. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but. So, guys, quite sadly, I have to stop the live stream right now. I do. Not every day. Usually we run until 2, but today I got to stop it right now. We're back tomorrow at noon. The show continues at WIBC.com. So you want to be tuned in for that. I appreciate you. I really do thank you all for being here. No, yeah, you want to? No. Yes, I need to. Hold on a second. Where'd you go, Claudia? No, don't be rude, Claudia. Don't be rude. Don't be that way. Stop it. Stop it now. You're all pretty awesome. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this. And I will catch you all tomorrow at noon. Be there and don't forget to subscribe there on the YouTubes. Greatly appreciate it. Catch you then.